Hi, Tony. How are you?
I am very well, thank you.
So we're talking about what is this? Your third orchestral record, right? Do you prefer classical or orchestral?
I call it orchestral. Classical to me conjures up sort of like, Bach and Mozart, so I don't feel I'm quite there yet. So orchestral is good.
I mean, 3 albums in, you're getting close to there, if nothing else, by default, I guess.
Well, it means, yes, it means I have my own rack in record shops, you mean. No, yeah, I think you get better at these things as well, really. I had a lot to learn to begin with, and I sort of feel, I get happier with each result.
What is it that attracts you to this type of writing? Because, I mean, obviously, for those who don't know, this is not the world you exactly started in here.
I love lots of forms of music, really, and I've always loved pop music, really. I mean, I was kind of, when I was 13 to 17, 18, I was kind of like, pop music was my kind of life, really. But I liked classical music both before and after, and I still love it, obviously. So I love the sound of an orchestra. I think it's a wonderful sound, and I think what you can do with orchestras, you can be a little bit more kind of expansive in terms of what you do, both as in composing and kind of harmonies you can use, and the length of pieces and structure. You're not, pop music tends to be more structured, particularly if you're writing sort of pop songs, hits and stuff, or close to hits, or trying to write hits. But, perhaps in the early days of Genesis, we wrote sort of, in our progressive days, we wrote some very expansive and long things. And I always felt very close to that. And in the world of the orchestral music, I feel I can do something more like that. And I really enjoy doing that.
So when you're writing this, I mean, for some, it's just, you kind of go where the movements take you. The ones that feel good, and others you're trying to tell a story through the movements. Does it work one way or the other with you?
I think really music sort of tends to lead me from one place to another, really. I'm not particularly trying to tell an actual story, but a sort of a kind of musical, the music should have a story of its own, if you like. It has its own momentum, takes you from one place to another, and for me, when it works well, even though the changes can be quite abrupt or you have a change of mood or change of music, it should carry the listener through with it. And, I just write what appeals to me, really, and I use my own taste as a sort of yardstick and hope that other people follow.
Well, when you get a title like, the first listen on this record with Prelude to a Million Years, I mean, that's a great title. That sort of sets up a story if there ever would be one.
Yeah, well, I agree. It's a bit of a borrowed title, I have to say. There's a American graphic artist called Lind Ward who wrote a series of books which are actually, they're totally done with pictures, stories without words, if you like. And he like him very much. And one of his books was called Prelude to a Million Years, and I've always quite liked the title. And I thought, because this opening piece on this record was very much what I would call a prelude, I thought I'll borrow this title, and it conjures up a nice image, I think, really.
Of course, another one of the big notes off of these songs is Renaissance. I read actually comes from the Genesis days. Is that right, or a version of it?
Well, yes, it's not really from Genesis. Something I wrote, in fact, basically in the late 90s. I wrote the first 1 minute of the piece was something I found on an old tape that I'd written many years ago when I was trying to get involved in film music, part of a film demo tape sort of thing. And I thought it had a very strong atmosphere. I really liked the way it set it up. So it's just all it is the first part of it. It's a sort of drone section with a weird melody, and then a little very simple melody that follows it. That kind of was what came originally, and everything else since then was written. All the rest of the song was written more recently. That was the last thing I wrote. So it's 90% new music, really, but it's just a little... Sometimes you need a spark to set you off in a particular direction, and that was what... that definitely sparked me in a way. It's something, a little thing. I'd heard it, in fact, a few times. I'd listened to it over the years, and I thought, I've got to do something with that, because I just feel it's really good, So it's finally made its way out.
Isn't that interesting how long, though, something can just set dormant, one of your ideas, your creative ideas, until... decades later, that it finally,
well, it's happened. I mean, it happened with bits and pieces over the years. I mean, I had bits and pieces that ended up in songs like Supper's Ready, and then in the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway that I'd written, 10 years before. I mean, they do come in like that, really. And even a song like A Trick of the Tail, which ended up being the title track of that album, I'd written about 7-8 years before that. Sometimes just their moment comes, if you like, and then you use it,
I do say, you got to say, it's sort of walking between the two eras here, to come from that prog and rock world, prog and rock world,
Prog, I like prog.
Yeah, prog.
That's good. Prog.
Combination, why not? That's what we do these
days.
Why not? And that's what you're talking about, how sort of dealing with both of those. I mean, does that music still hold the same interest to you now as it did then?
Well, I still enjoy the stuff we did. I mean, I must admit, I'm a fan of our music, so when I hear it and I think that's actually really good, everything stands up with most of the stuff I do. So I'm happy with it. I can't say, do I listen to other people's music like that? Well, I don't think I ever did, really. So the kind of music, my heart, I suppose, is in the 1960s, really, with groups like, obviously, the Beatles and the Beach Boys and Simon and Garfunkel and all the early Tamla Motown stuff. I suppose that's Otis Redding. Those kind of things still move me perhaps more than in the world of rock, more than things that came later. Although there's many things I've liked over the years, don't get me wrong, but it's just, rather than things that were more equivalent to us. But our own music, I was just rather amazed when I hear it back. I think, I'm amazed that we did it. I hear it and I think, God, is that actually, how do we do that? And the way it comes out, and it actually sounds convincing, because it's a bit like, even with this latest piece I've done, you kind of, when you're writing at home and you do it, and when you finally get the whole thing together and you get the orchestra out there and it's all playing it, and it comes back and you think, God, that sounds great. Where did that come from? And so I'm always a bit surprised by this stuff, but that's the way.
Well, with that in mind, of course, I would have to ask you the same question that I'm sure you get on every interview, but Phil Collins is back out there. He said he doesn't rule out ever creating with you all again, and I don't necessarily mean that in a reunion state, but do you see yourself working with those guys at any point in the future?
Well, we never rule it out. And, as you say, I'm quite surprised Phil is out there, which is fantastic, really, because, a year or two ago, I would have thought he was going to be ever out there again, and he found a way to do it. It involves quite a static performance, but his voice sounds great, and the music still sounds fantastic and everything. So, yeah, I don't rule it out at all. Mike and I see each other all the time. We get on well, has no problem. So it's never an impossibility. But we are all getting a bit long in the tooth, and who knows, whether if we came back together, whether anything actually of any worthwhile nature would actually happen. That's the question, isn't it? We could get in the same room and say, yeah, let's do it. Finally get there and find there's nothing to do. But, we don't rule it out, and, who knows? It'd be fun to try. But we've got to see. Phil's got to survive his tour, first of all, and then we'll see where we go.
Have you caught any of his shows out there?
Yeah, I saw him play in the Albert Hall, and, it was just funny seeing him sitting down all the time and everything, but the show was great, and the music, the rest of the band is fantastic. They're such good players, and the show itself was very good too, all the production and everything. So it was kind of like, it was great fun to see him and stuff like that. Yeah. But yes, one could do a version of it. The trouble is he's our drummer. That's the problem. You must remember that, and he can't drum anymore. So that's a slight problem. But his son did a very good job for him. His son, who's playing drums, is only 15 years old, I think. He might be 16, I don't know. But, he does it extremely. When he said he was going to use him, I thought this is going to be, I'm not sure how this is going to work. But he plays really well. And, he sounds incredibly like Phil. And when he plays, pieces like Take Me Home, which obviously has a very important sort of drum part that goes through the final section and everything, he sounds fantastic. That was great. It was really, really exciting to see.
See, it could just be like a Jason Bonham Led Zeppelin thing for you guys if it needed to be. So.
Well, it could be. I don't know really. We certainly haven't got that far yet. Right. So I think poor chap, he's got his own life to live. He doesn't want to sort of just be a Phil Collins clone for the rest of his life. But he's a very talented player himself, so who knows?
Yeah. Well, again, I want to congratulate you on this record because it's a really fantastic thing and just completely impressive. There are so many movements going on with this, and the music is really beautiful.
Well, thanks a lot. That's great.
Yeah, Tony, it's a pleasure talking to you. Hopefully, are you touring behind this one? Are you going to be doing this one live with the orchestras?
I have no plans at the moment, but I don't rule it out. But, what I'd really like is someone else to do it, actually, But who knows? We'll see what happens in the future.
That's the dream right there. Write the song and then let other people do it.
Well, that's what I always wanted to do. Right? I've been trying to do this for 50 years, and it's not worked yet. But someday maybe it'll happen, Who knows? Oh, we had the Disturbed. The Disturbed did a version of Land of Confusion, which was really good. So, why not? Someone else could do something. Anyhow, there you go.
There you go, man. Tony, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, great.
All right, take care.
Nice to talk to you. Okay, bye. Bye.